Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Mark, and this is Mark's Coding Project. Welcome back. In today's video, I will be showing you guys how I plan on moving our logical game board, so our 2D array, into our graphics. So right off the bat, I've got to make you aware of a couple of changes that we've made. So I've removed the constructor declaration from the main method of test multiple connections. So we're no longer creating a test multiple connections object when we run this class. The reason for that is because I want this class to contain the main method. The only reason that this class has a main method is to create another instance of this class. So, it's like you can remove all of this and you'll achieve the exact same result in terms of functionality. It's just that I'm keeping this part in so that we can run this and create a second client just for testing purposes. Normally, you would just have this as your secondary class without a main method, and this is your primary. And when you come to run the game, you will be running this class first off. So now that we've moved the constructor declaration, it is in our main class, you'll notice. So as a client, we'll run this. Our GUI will be built, and our logical game container, if you like, our logical object is also created. And they're able to communicate with each other since they were created within the same class. And that is going to become important later. So moving on, we have all of the same functionality in our constructor of building a window. Display images has been slightly changed. So the only thing that is going to be displayed is displaying the board. And I might actually call that display board. I've just realized actually that display board is a totally useless method. I will explain why to you in a minute. But for now, just pretend that, oh yes, this is a genius way of doing it, which is not, but I'll explain later. Also, I already have a method called display board. So I will call it display board image. There we go. Okay, so display board image simply displays the image of the board. Very self-explanatory. Places it at coordinates 0, 0. It does the whole icon to label to frames thing that we talked about in the last tutorial, I think. And that's all that is doing. This is where things are getting a bit more interesting. So we have a display board method. Now the difference between this and display board image is that this is actually going to be how we map our array to our graphics. So you'll notice right off the bat it takes a 2D array element, a 2D array as a parameter, sorry. It throws an IO exception because we will be reading in image files. Yeah, so sorry, that's the method header. The first thing we have is we have two local variables, width and height. Now, my plan is that the width and height will match the width and height of the counter images. So the width will be the width of the counter image and the height will be the height of the counter image. This will need to be the same for both the red and the yellow counters. So this will be some behind the scenes photoshopping that I'll have to do as well. The point of these is so that we can figure out a way of placing our counters. So what I've done is I've set up two for loops to loop through our array, and if our array holds a white counter at a specific coordinate, a yellow counter at a specific coordinate, or a red counter, we can tell. So 1 is red and 2 is yellow. So if our board contains a 1, we will want to display a red counter, and if our board contains a 2, it will want to display a yellow counter. So once we've done that, that's the easy part, we now need to determine where to display it. And this is fairly simple. We just use our local width and height variables and then times it by our x and y coordinates. This may need to change. However, the idea is you know, if you look, if I make a grid here, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you take the width of this one character, okay, so say it's 0, 0, you'll do, oh, that doesn't work. It doesn't work for 0, 0. Just figure that out. That one needs to be changed. The general gist is, you know, pretend it's like 1, 1 here. So this will be 1 times the width times the height. So then once we get to 2, 1, the height will be the same as this. However, the width will start twice as far across as the first one. And that makes a lot of sense because it's the second in the row. This will be the third in the row, and therefore this will start 3 times far across. And then once we move down a row, the height will then be doubled. So this one, the width will be the same as this, however, its height will be doubled, and that was because our y in our for loop will have incremented by 1. So that's the general idea. I'm not sure how that's going to work out yet, but that's the plan. And then finally, you'll notice that all of these are being passed to display counter. So display counter takes x and y coordinates, or it takes x and y integer values, which are going to translate to coordinates, and it takes an image. So what it's going to do is, it's going to take our width, and it's going to take our height, and it's going to take our image. It's going to load our image into a label, and then it's going to place the label at our width and height sizes, I guess. So say our width is 60, it will place our label at x equals 60 in terms of a Cartesian coordinate system. So, you know, with the 2 axes, and x goes across and y goes across, y goes up, sorry. So that's the general gist of it. Again, I'm not entirely sure that this is going to work first time. There are a couple of little things that I think might need tweaking. So there might be a gap. We might have to leave a gap. So we don't want the counters being stacked directly on top of each other. We may want to leave like 10 pixels or something, possibly. That might be a thing that we need to do. There's also the challenge of, will the counters be printed on top of the board or underneath it? That's something that needs to be done, because it might be that we place the counters at the back of the screen, and then once all of that is done, we place the board on top, and then that way it gives the effect, the 2D effect at least, that the counters are inside the board, which is what they look like in real life. You know, the counters don't sit on top of the board in a real game, they sit within it. So that's a good way to mimic that. And then finally, what I noticed about this method, and it being redundant, is that what we can do is we can change this to display counter. And then if I pass it 0, 0, so it'll be set to location 0, 0, just like in this method. And then we pass it, oh dear, and then we pass it our file pathway, Control C, plop that in there. There we go. So essentially, this is redundant, so we can get rid of it. Fantastic. Make our code a lot nicer. In terms of this executing, the execution of display board will be in, I want to say it's going to be in the main class. Down the bottom, yeah, GUI.displayBoard, get game board. So we are calling our display method over here. We are passing it the 2D array from the logic class using the getter method, and then hopefully this will display, using display counter, all of the images that we want. I'm actually going to change this to display image because that is a very misleading name that we've got at the moment. image. There we go. Display image and display image. Okay, so I've done a little bit of research and I found that set location is not the best method to be using with our label. Instead, what we're to be using is set bounds. So in the future, this will be adapted to take the image's width and height, but for now, I'm setting them in as hard-coded values. So we've adapted display method to take two more parameters, width and height. They will be passed to set bounds, and they represent the image's width and height. In terms of our board, I've commented this out for now because I'm trying to get the counters to display correctly. At the moment, they're being a bit temperamental. I'll show you what I mean actually. Okay, so if we run, annoyingly, we're going to have to run the server as well as the client classes. That is a little bit irritating, but there you go. So if we run everything, there we go. We've got green screen and we should have another one. Cool. Right off the bat, there is a bug. So the second person to connect is always made to be player 2 and the first is always made to be player 1. So I'm going to have to go back and change that. I think it's something to do with set player in the server class. So that needs to be worked on. Anyway, moving on. So I'm going to do like 3 or 4 moves to get some counters on the board, and I'll show you guys where we're up to in terms of display. So I couldn't actually tell you which player this is. That will need to change. I'll probably put a thing in the title declaration, in the constructor declaration. So in the title parameter, I'll say connect for main class or connect for test multiple connections, because that will be useful for the debugging process. So first off, this is just an absolutely horrendous Photoshop job. This one's done really well, and this one is I don't know, it's just gone really badly. So that needs fixing. Secondly, I don't think that all the images are being relayed correctly. So if I make a round 2, make another round of moves, sorry, I'll kind of illustrate this a bit more clearly. So yeah, so you see, you know, we should have 2 more counters on the board. We've only got 1, which is a bit weird. I don't know why that's happened, and also I don't quite know why they match as well. Like these top 2 shouldn't really match. In my mind, they should be just counting down basically from here, but they're not for some reason. So that needs to be changed. In addition, we need to invert our. Do we need to invert both of them? Yeah, we probably will. So we want our counters to stack upwards. So we're going to need to invert our X and Y. So we're going to need to count down from a certain value towards the edge of the board. So the numbers will need to be inverted. We can't just increment from 0, 0 and go upwards. Secondly, you'll notice that it's only displaying yellow counters. That I have no clue why it's doing that, because it does work on the first time. I might take it a bit slower actually. Let's see what happens after I make a single move. Oh, why did I do that? Yeah, this is another bug, by the way. If you fill a column, it doesn't then reset your go. That's something that needs fixing. So if I press, yeah, there we go. We got a red counter? No, we don't have a red counter. Yeah, weird. Yeah, really weird. I think there's a delay between. Well, I don't know why there would be. Maybe there's a delay with counters, like new counters being displayed, possibly. Or, I mean, there's a possibility that counters are only displayed after you yourself have made a move. So the opponent makes a move and you don't get to see what the board looks like. I think that isn't working. But it doesn't make sense as to why this red counter never shows up on this board. That doesn't make sense at all. So, yeah, we've got a few different problems that we need to iron out. Just see. Yeah, see, it's printing yellow counters. I think, should it be printing yellow counters? Should it be printing red? To be fair, I could do it really stupid. And okay, yeah, so it's supposed to be printing yellow counters for player 2. If I place another one for player 1, it's going to display. Oh, I did it again. Idiot. Okay, right. There we go. So dumb. Right, there we go. Cool. Okay. Are we gonna get a no? No, we're not. I mean, to be fair, this I quite like this. So this is kind of what we want. So if you imagine the grids on top, and you'll be able to see these, that's kind of all right. But again, all the counters are yellow, and yeah, it just isn't working properly. I don't know what's up with the red counter. But so the red counter not showing is a separate issue to the actual displaying. So these two counters are being caused because when we try and multiply out our height, we're timesing by 0. So when we say height is equal to width times 0, anything times 0 is 0. So I think that's probably causing a problem. And I think same again for the same again for this counter here. But then again, you'd think that, how strange. How very, very strange. I don't know. Honestly, at the moment, I'm not sure. We've identified a few different issues. We need to invert the counters. We need to sort these two out, and we need to get red counters displaying as well. So there's like 3 different things that we're going to try and sort out. But for now, that's all I've got for you. If you want to go ahead and try and solve these yourselves, then feel free. And as always, please do like, comment, and subscribe. This code will be available on GitHub once the graphics are a bit more presentable. I won't want to give this software to anyone just yet, but in the future it will be available on GitHub. Anyway, so that's it from me. I'll see you guys later.